Welcome to the Casey Catch Up. This week we've talked to Nathan Chandler, who's better known as Foil Perth on Instagram, and whose profile picture is Susan Boyle. He's a character, to say the least. He's also one of the first people in Australia to be downwinding, and he started doing it on a prone in Perth, Western Australia, which is one of the windiest places on earth in their summer. But we had a really good chat. It went for longer than any of the other ones just because the stories kept coming, and I didn't want to deprive anyone of missing out on the gold that was coming out of his mouth. So if you do have time, lock yourself in, get ready for a bunch of really good chats, adventures from Rocknest back to the mainland in Perth, some crazy helicopter rescues, and all in all, just some good laughs. So Nathan Chandler, Foil Perth, the original wake thief, enjoyed this one. All right, welcome to the Casey Catch Up. We have Susan Boyle, Foil Perth, Nathan Chandler here with us, a WA downwind foil. I'd call you a pioneer. You were definitely, along with Marcus Tardrew, one of the first over there to be doing it and getting into it in a very different way to the way Marcus did, which I think is a lot of people will be able to relate to. Nathan, or Foil Perth, is a downwind prone foil madman. He's done, it's probably some of the longest downwind foils I know to date, and in some of the sharkiest, weediest water.
There's sharks out there?
Yeah, apparently. I've heard. Yeah. So yeah, Nathan, take it away. Give us your intro of, I guess, who you are, how you got into downwind foiling, and yeah, let's start with that.
Good to see you, mate. I haven't seen you for ages. First up, thinking of you guys on the East Coast, having a rough time over there, and I hope you're getting in the water and still doing what you need to do. But yeah, look, mate, over here, as you know, like Perth, the waves range from poor to shit, basically 365 days a year. So the whole foiling adventure started for me with, just seeing it the first time online, and really just going, this is the answer to everything I've been looking for my whole life. Having ridden multiple boards and done multiple board sports for my entire life, and having the restrictions of poor waves here, and obviously we've got heaps of wind, so plenty of wind. So from day one, your options were buy a Nash or buy a Go Foil, 2 options, and then it was figure out the rest on your own. And I only had a Kai wing, so it was literally, I bought a new pod mod, Almeric pod mod, brand new off the rack. I've got a Tuttle box. I took it to Walter Chalupsky, who's brother of multiple world champion ocean racing paddler Oscar Chalupsky. And I took it to him and I said, Walter, I've got this beautiful surfboard. I want you to cut a massive hole in the bottom, stick this box in it, mount the foil for me. And he kind of looked at me, what Walter's like, and he goes, it's not going to work, rah, rah. And then he did it for me, and he did an incredible job. And he even cut the mast, and I didn't know that till I went to sell it. So he even got the angles right, and this board was bulletproof. But anyway, that's the story of how I kind of first started. But I got into the surf with it. I went down to Scarborough, paddled it a wave, got sent. It felt like 20 foot in the air on my first wave on a Kai, which, is a small wing. Yeah. And then, caught a couple of waves, got the feel of it. And then basically it was City Beach Groin every afternoon, first season of summer. And that 17-18 season was nuclear. It was every afternoon. It was literally like 30 knots every afternoon that whole season. I haven't seen one like it for a while. So, mate, I was downwinding day one from when I started, because it was chip-ins off the groin, and the goal was to go to Floreat Groin, which was 450 metres away. So I was working on that, and I remember you came over, and I didn't even know you, and I was direct messaging you because I heard you had a 200, and I was just like, James, I don't know who you are, I don't care, give me a 200, I want to go further. Like, this is, I'm getting sick of this little Kai wing. I can only take it so far.
Yeah.
And then, and then you came over and I saw you do a couple of runs. I think there was a downwind race, and I was like, I've got to get my hands on one of those 200s, and it was just calling everyone, hassling everyone. And then the shop, Stand Up Surf Shop Frio, they had one, and I got my hands on it. And then after that, it was just a joke. Like, had a mate with a ski, and we were doing like 25k downwind straight up off the bat. So that 400, making it to Floreat Groin, that 450 meters was like, that was achieved day one, like as soon as we got that wing.
I think like that's a really good story. And that sort of brings me back to like that same time period when I was starting to foil too, that sort of 17, 18 season. And there was such limited equipment, like boards you could get a hold of. I had a similar story. I go to my sister's board that was in the garage, and I'm like, I'm going to make this board a foil board. She's like, hey, that's my board. And I was like, you haven't used it much. I took it to my board repair guy, Tim Radford, and he's like, you don't want to do this, James. There's nothing wrong with this board. You're going to ruin it. You never surf it. And I'm like, no, it's collecting dust. We're going to put as you said, put a massive hole in it. We're going to put a tuttle box in, and it's going to be epic. And he was just so against it, and it was epic. And
it held up?
For the most part, I ended up surfing over in Cloudbreak with it. I was over there for the ISA World Games, and I was using it as a foil board as well as a surfboard, and I snapped it out Cloudbreak one day, right where the box is, as you'd expect. It's Cloudbreak. So, but it was an epic board. I had a hell time learning, and then I got in touch with Sonova, and we finally started developing the first production foil boards because there was nothing back then.
No. And look,
in terms of the Kai foil, like I did the exact same thing. I think it was the year before, must have been 16, 17, or because I did the first downwind run I tried was in Mandurah, and I was using the Kai foil, and it was like impossible to paddle up onto the foil on. And like you're saying, like 450 meters, that's a long way on the Kai foil back then.
That's the longest I got, I reckon. I didn't quite make it there, but that was kind of as far as I got.
Impressive. Super impressive.
Yeah.
And like, I love that you said that you started like in Perth, no waves. So you were learning to downwind from day one. And I love that. That's so epic.
Well, just seeing the potential of the sport when it first kind of came out with that wing. I just like, mate, I was teaching kids and I was showing them videos of it. I was just going, look, he's riding nothing. Like he's riding nothing to the beach. Like there's not even a wave. Like he's surfing, he's skateboarding on the ocean. And guys were doing that. And I'm kind of glad I started on the 5-7 board, on the big board. Because once I got those custom Amundsen's from Hawaii, that was sick, absolutely amazing. But going from 5'11" to 4'8" was a big jump, and then I didn't touch my
There was this kind of there was this transition from these big boards, like 5 somethings, to like there's this. Remember that trend that went from like almost 6 foot boards down to 3 foot boards. And then everyone was like, 3 foot's the best. You got to get 3. And then all of a sudden, people were like, we can't paddle under waves on this thing. So that's sort of gone back up to this sort of 4, 6, 4, 9, 5 foot sort of mark, which has been
The 4'8" was amazing, and I didn't touch my 4'0" for like 2 weeks because I was just too rattled by it. It just sat in the boot of the car, and I looked at it and went, "This is out of control." Like it was 36 liters, but it was 4'0", and it was like a skimboard. And then I took it out, and I didn't touch my 4'8" after that because it was, going from 4'8" to 4'0" was like riding, a performance surfboard versus a performance longboard, something like that. And it was just a joke. So, the 4'8" didn't really get a run after that. But that was crazy. Even cut the nose off a Mao, had a broken Mao. That was like 3'8", and got one of those sticky bolt-on plates that I paid a fortune for, and it was like took that out and couldn't even paddle it. And that was a waste of money. But it was so early on, you didn't really know what to do, and
you had to take a punt.
I couldn't get boards anywhere. I couldn't get anyone to make what I wanted until I contacted John in Hawaii, and I told him what I wanted, and he drew those up for me, and yeah, they turned out perfect. And then, you know, I know you were in my ear about getting on the SUP game, and got a board made north of Perth. The guy with the CNC machine, Wado, legend. He got us a board, and then yeah, Marcus came over, and yourself spoke to me, and it was like come and ride some Synovas and try some stuff out. So that's how that happened.
Yeah, no, it was epic to watch, I guess, your journey. One of the things that really stood out to me was one, your sort of partnership with Mick McCormick, but also
that boy.
Yeah, it was like bloody Batman and Robin. And I remember the first time I saw you downwinding online was, I think Mick was on a kite and he was towing you in.
Oh, that was sick.
Yeah, so tell us about that, and like how far in was that into your downwind game?
That was. So was that during the race that we did that? Were you there for
I saw it online. I didn't see it in real life.
Oh shit! This is another crazy story. So I think we did the race first. There was a downwind paddling race with all the Molokai guys and the SUP paddlers from Port Beach, from Port Beach to City Beach, and I'm like, Mick, I want to do this. I want to do this on the prone, and he's like, yeah, I'll whip you in on the kite and we can do it. And I'm like, oh, I don't think I can do it off the rocks because it's in lieu of the wind and I'm going to have to pump too far. And that was with the Go Forward 200, which was an absolute leg burner. Like people go, oh, leg burner. That is the proper leg burner wing. Yeah. You're never going to ride a wing that's going to smash you like that wing did. And so he was so funny. Yeah, it's like Dumb and Dumber, eh? Like we were on the beach and they're starting off and I'm like, yeah, I'm going in it, and Boothie's there and everyone's racing and Mick's out there doing laps on his kite, and it's in lieu of Fremantle Port. So you got all these containers and ships, so the wind's shit out, like it's really up and down. So he's doing laps and he's coming in close, going, Nate, my kite's going like this and I'm sketching out. I'm going to have to go down the beach and you have to meet me down there. So he's tacking up and down. So the race has started. I've run 500 metres down the beach, paddled out to sea. The wind's real sketchy, throws the tow rope to me. I'm holding on to it and I'm like, go, 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 power on. The first one was just the funniest shit ever. He pulled me up and he was like 7 to 10 foot in the air, swinging like a pendulum, and I'm holding on with the rope, going, go, Mick, go, more power, more power. And he's like almost 100 kilos, and he's got this 8-9 meter kite, and he's like 10 foot up in the air, swinging like a pendulum. So anyway, unsuccessful that time, and then did a loop, came back, got me. All the skis had gone past. Like, damn it, and got going again. Came in, got me up this time, got up, and it was lucky I got up, and went the whole way from basically Salt on the Beach all the way to City Beach without coming down. And
which for people that don't know, that's around 10 to 12 kilometers.
About 10k, yeah. Yep. And that was on the 200, and I think it might have been the version 1 Go for long mast. So yeah, that one was pretty stiff. That was pretty draggy mast though, but you know, obviously all very new equipment, still developing. But yeah, got to Swanee and Boothie went past me. So the wings were still kind of being developed with speed, but I was struggling, and Mick was like, if you came down, there is no way we would have been able to get going again. And that was brutal. I got to the finish, and I don't think I've ever been so tired from a run doing that day, because the wind really.
What was the wind? So the wind wasn't that strong, obviously, by the sounds of it. It was.
Nah, it started out strong, but then it kind of dropped down to probably, I don't know, 15 knots. And at the time, I wasn't too aware of the issues of dragging seagrass and weed. So it's highly probable I was dragging weed the entire way without knowing, which just made it even more difficult.
It's like got the handbrake on. Yeah,
that's it. But got there and came in after Boothie, so smoked everyone on old gear, which was pretty funny. And Nick came in on his kite, and he was just rattled. He was like, "Mate, my kite was the whole way down. It was flapping, and it was about to drop." And so that was one time. And then the other time was off Trig, towing us around out there. That was epic. Like that was 25 knots, and he just followed me down the coast. And yeah, that was a good time, that one as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
Epic. And so that was, I guess that would have been the first person foiling a race, not officially, but foiling a race over in WA. I know I did one. I can't remember which year it was, but one of the Sunset Surf Ski Series, I did a foil.
I think it was one of those, mate. Yeah. I think it was maybe just before you got there, or maybe it was after.
Hey, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, maybe.
We're both pioneers, mate. Yeah, we can pat ourselves on the back. Both legends.
Yeah. Oh, mate. Pioneer or not, I was never not getting into it. It was just like, I'm like, this is the answer. Don't skateboard anymore. I've got to now I can skateboard on the ocean. So
epic.
Win-win.
Yeah,
win-win.
And I want to say that was obviously your downwind, downwind foiling. But another thing that I think is definitely worth talking about is in Perth in summer. It's windy almost 6 out of 7 days, and then in winter the wind sucks most of the time. So in winter, you guys transitioned from downwind foiling to wake thieving. So do you want to give a little bit of an intro to what wake thieving is? Because you, as far as my knowledge goes, you came up with this term, and now there's a Facebook page, Wake Thieving, and a brand called Wake Thieving that's...
Is there?
I'll have to show you. But it's like this massive thing.
I should have trademarked that shit.
You should have, mate. You missed you. But tell us what wake thieving is, because you've, I guess, pioneered that over in WA too.
Well, Sam, Sammy McCullough, so he started doing the sup foiling probably first, and had and I wasn't doing the sup foiling or the downwinding on the sup. I was doing it on the prone, and Mick and I were doing it on the prone. And he kind of messaged me. He goes, "Nate, I've been catching the ferries down the river on this thing. Like, you've got to come down. Like, it's crazy. I've been riding them down the river and up the river and coming back and all around." And he was doing that on a sup.
So he was paddling up onto the foil and then riding
because he, from a very young age,
he's
super elite paddler. And he's like, come down. And so Mick and I had been jumping off rocks and into downwinds at Cottesloe and doing all that stuff. That was how we were downwinding, jumping off the groin. Sometimes paddling into waves. I don't know if we paddled into waves, because that 200 was pretty lifty. It was like a bit much to paddle into waves for me. So we were just jumping off rock groins into downwinds. But I jumped on the maps, and I had a look at where I could find a nice dock. Found a nice dock, and I said, "Sammy, I'll meet you here." And then I was like, there weren't many boats around, so it was literally like the 5:15 ferry, the 5:45. I even looked at the bloody, I jumped on and was like, when's the next boat coming? Oh, it's leaving Rottnest at this time. It should be here by this time. And got the dock, and I got the ferry like first time ever off the dock. Got it, pumped out to it, got on it, and I was losing my shit. Like, I was so excited. And this wake was pretty big, because I think there's a lot of water moving in winter down the Swan from the Avon Valley, the catchment. So the water's moving out. And if the tide's running out as well and the boat's going into it, then the wake is like, it was like waist high, this wake. It was too big for the 200. So I got on that, and Mick and I think Mick was on it with me as well, and Sam was on it, and we're all freaking out, just freaking out, and rode it for maybe a couple 100 meters, and then overfoiled on that, because what you have, go foil mast is pretty short, and you had the base plate adapter. So it only took you up to about 68 centimeters. So that was a limitation, not having the height. But yeah, that was, from then on, I was like, "Thanks, Sammy. I appreciate it. We'll see you here tomorrow."
Yeah.
And then that was it.
So you're 5:15 again for the ferry. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And then winter, it was like I was driving, from my house in Carrinup all the way down to Fremantle to potentially not catch the ferry and fall off, and then drive 35, 40 minutes home empty-handed. So it was so clutch. Like I get down there might be one or two other crappy boats go past, and then it's like you see the ferry coming around the corner up near the left bank pub, and you're like, oh, I hope it's not Captain Slow today.
Yeah.
I hope he's doing the 8 to 10 knot range.
Yeah.
And then he'd come past, and you'd see them looking out the window at me, going, "Oh, not this guy again! Like, what's he up to?" And then bang, get on it, and then it was like it'd be Largo, like the wind in winter sometimes just drops right out, and I'd get it all the way to Point Walter, and I didn't care. I just ride it for like I don't even know how far that is, and it'd take me like 45 minutes to walk back to the car because it was just the sickest wave. It's like a wave pool. Like
that's what I was going to say.
I'm just riding an endless wave like down the river. Like I'm not getting off after 2 minutes. I'm taking it to the end and walking home in the dark and cold, and then drive back to Carrinup. So that's still love it. Don't get down there as much because that you kind of get that froth addiction under control foiling after about 2 years, but it took me about 2 years to kind of be able to have a day off. Being okay with that.
I think Benny Martin coined the term foil brain, and that's something that I see so many of my friends that are now into foiling. It's like, oh, come for one this afternoon. I'm like, it's okay. Like I've been through that phase. Like I'm just gonna wait for when the conditions are a little bit nicer, but they're like, oh, you missed it. It was so good. I'm like, I'm sure it was. It would have been epic, but. I've only got so many things I can do in the day. So much fun, and like from a downwind foiling perspective. So started prone downwinding, then and obviously nailed the dock starts pretty early on because you had to, and then dock starting into wake thieving, and then come winter you're back into your prone downwind dock starting off the groins. So the longest one, one of this, I guess, must have been the second time I'd seen you do it. And I remember chatting to Marcus, like, what is this foil Perth guy doing? He's like dock starting, and how far out is he going? And I saw a video, and you were way, way out to sea. Like I see a lot of the guys that are learning to downwind, they're doing, I guess, shore runners. You weren't doing a shore runner. You were kilometres out to sea, and you did one all the way to Sorrento, 25 kilometres.
That was last season, but that was on good gear like that. When
did you get into the SUP? Because obviously you were pushing the prone downwind stuff for quite a while, and did Marcus talk you into getting a SUP, and how'd that evolve?
So Sam he had the SUP, he had the SUP background, he had the foil, only one doing it. I had the prone, Mick and I had the prones, we were doing that. And obviously I saw the limitations of prone downwinding in that if you fall, you die. Probably should have trademarked that one as well, Jimmy.
Yeah, you should have.
So I saw he was doing the run from kind of Port Beach to Cot, just a small one, like maybe 5-6K on the SUP.
Yeah.
And the angle for that run's like a really beautiful angle. The seas aren't too big, semi-protected, just nice straight chops, good run.
Yeah.
And I was looking at that run. Oh, sorry, what are we talking? We're talking about the SUP, aren't we? How to get into SUP. So basically saw him doing that, saw the limitations of prone. Before I met Marcus and spoke to you, I went, all right, I've got to sort this out, get someone to make me a SUP. Tried to get someone in Hawaii to make it for me. Couldn't get that happening for whatever reason. So I took it to a guy in Lancelin, Wade Freeman. I think Shannon Stent helped me with a design because he was playing around with board designs on one of the programs.
Yeah.
And sent that to Wade, went up there, did a design. It was like I called it the egg. It was like a 5, 10, 28, 120 litres or something.
Which isn't too far off, I guess. I think a lot of people, when they do their first SUPs, they probably go too short. 5'10", 20, like 5'10" by 28, I would say is a good SUP to surf nowadays with a bit of benefit of hindsight. I guess what I found, and I'm sure you found too, is going a little bit longer and skinnier makes the world of difference. Yeah.
Totally. You need that water line. It's like paddling your SUPs and paddling skis. You need that length. You need that planing speed. You need that rail to help you get going.
But yeah, 510 by 28. So you sort of went into 120 litres for first time sup isn't that big. So it was a bit of a learning curve, right?
Well, I've never even supped. So
yeah.
I've got a paddling background, whitewater, used to downwind skis a lot.
Yeah.
Probably should have started kiting, to be honest, but Dad was paddling skis, so I was doing a lot of downwinds on skis. So I'm sure that paddling helped when it came to sup.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was before I had that board actually, mate. I bought a Hypernut. I had a Hypernut, and it just wasn't right. Like I ended up buying it just probably for the wrong reasons, because I thought it was the closest thing I could find to what I wanted, but it still wasn't even close to what I wanted. I just didn't really know how to go down that path of getting someone to make what I wanted.
Pretty square, wasn't it? It was
too big, super square, and the limitations of foils at the time didn't help that, or my skill and paddling strength at the time.
Yeah, and I think there's a really double-edged sword, because with the sup, and I know why people go small to start with, because when you're first learning to sup, of course you want a bigger board because that's going to be easier to get going. But then if you go too big a board, like you experienced, you can't actually get going because it's too much weight and too much surface area. So it's a really fine line between going too big a board that you're never going to be able to actually downwind, and then too small a board that you're never actually going to be able to learn any skills on because it's too small to balance on.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so it's really finding that that in between. Yeah, there's always going to be sacrifice. You're either sacrificing balance and buoyancy, or you're sacrificing takeoff speed. So yeah, that board served its purpose. To be honest, I didn't even really get to ride it that much, because I ended up getting on a Sonova, and I think the first time I took that down the river when it was blowing nuclear, like 45 knots in the river, and I went out with Marcus and tried that board, and we're paddling out off the jetty, and it was tiny chops, like knee high, whatever. I'm like, should we paddle out to the middle, where it's a bit bigger? And he goes, no, you'll be right, just go from here, because the chops move so slow. So they're kind of tracking at the same speed that you are as you're paddling. He goes, no, just go from here. And went from there and got up straight away and was tripping. Like, I couldn't believe it. So your board design is super important. And that board was perfect. That was like a 6'4", 28, 111 litres, I think it was. And after that,
a little bit longer. Yeah.
Totally. And and a bit more nose in it as well. So having that extra nose up the front, not too narrow, just kind of as it hits, it helps kind of pull it up. But yeah, that was actually not meant for me, that board. That was the manager of the shops at the time, and I went, I'm taking this, sorry. And then rode that for ages, and then after that it was just kind of working our way down from that board design, just reducing it a little bit, reducing volume, pulling it in, tucking it in a bit, but not getting too crazy with it. I just like keeping those boards simple, and functional.
Yeah. So I guess how was, we sort of skipped a bit, but how was learning to paddle? Like, how long did that take you? Because I've got a bunch of people that want to learn to sup foil, and a lot of people listening are prone foilers, and they do see the advantage of sup foiling, as a lot of us do, in that if you come down, you don't die. You can just paddle back up from anywhere.
Totally.
So how long did it take you to learn to literally paddle up onto the foil? Because that's not an easy skill to learn.
So I started with the Hypernut, and I took that out. I don't even know over what period it was. I started with that, and then I basically threw it away because it was too hard for me, the Hypernut, and I was convinced it was the equipment. So then I got on that white one, went out, did a couple short ones, maybe had a session, maybe not too many sessions where I don't think there was a session where I didn't get going. Like, I definitely got going. And there was certainly some frustration involved, but that was more based on a time and skill thing. I knew that if I spent more time out there and spent more time on the board, that I would get it. I knew it
You
wasn't.
you were just going straight into like downwind runs on a good day.
Yeah.
Like you were just doing.
Yeah.
So I'm going to open up a map, and I guess you would have been doing city beach runs. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah. The Cottesloe groin one to where are you? To
Yeah.
just
Cotters and
Swanbourne.
City.
Yeah. So just doing a short one, like the one that we used to jump off the rocks, like 2K,
Yeah.
3K or something. That's what we'd do.
Yeah.
And then after that we'd go Cottesloe to City Beach, which was
City
5 to 7
Yeah.
or something. So yeah, you've got it. Yeah, where it says Hampton City Beach.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know how far that is. Maybe 5.
Yeah.
I'd just say.
Yeah. So 6. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of what we started with, and then we did a couple from Trig Point to that stretch of coastline. I'd probably recommend for that more because there's not as much swell around.
Yeah.
As you start to get further up the coast, you have that mix of swell start to come in because Rottnest isn't blocking the swell as much up that end.
Yeah.
So, and then we do a couple from Trig Beach there to Sorrento.
Yeah, which is a really good, like that's got more swell. So for people that want to have bigger runs, I guess once they're more advanced, the Trig Beach to Sorrento is probably more fun. Is that correct?
I enjoy that stretch, but it's definitely harder to get going because you've got more swell. So you're better off down the Cottesloe to Swanbourne, Cottesloe to City Beach, because you do have those. It's mainly just seas and wind swell you're dealing with. Once you start to get down to Trig, the mix of the swell, you're kind of not getting as many of those little chip-ins unless it's super windy.
Mm-hmm.
But if you come down there, it can be quite troublesome to get going again.
Yeah. So for learning, best to start like up towards Port Beach, down to Cottesloe, down to City Beach, and then once you get better, you're going in a bit more of a mix of wind chop and swell. Yeah. That's
it. Yeah. Most common run I do is City Beach to Sorrento because I live up that way, but when it's windy, it gets pretty wild out there. So that's where I tend to roam. And I get on the shuttle bus after work. I literally drive down the road, get on the bus, give them my $10, drop me off at City Beach, and I'm one and done. Go home.
How good?
Yeah. It's ideal. Yeah.
It's
pretty lucky.
Downwind heaven in Perth in summer.
Yeah. Oh, mate.
Yeah.
It's unreal. It's like be one of the best places in the world for sure. All the guys who paddle it and have been paddling it forever are always saying it's the best place in the world to downwind because the Perth coastline it's basically like a huge bay. And then the whole way down, you've got surf clubs. And, if you ever get in trouble, you just come in on the beach and there's a surf club or there's a road nearby or, you just walk or you just walk back if it goes really shit.
Yeah. When you overshoot your car. I know you've done that. I've seen you on Instagram walking back up.
Now I've done it heaps just because I the intention is I get a little chip in on my prone from City Beach.
Yeah.
Park at Trig or North Beach, and then I get to Trig and I'm like, oh, too good. Like,
too good.
And then I shoot around Trig Point, and I've even gone to Sorrento and walked like an hour back to my car because it's like I can't go because how short runs can be if you're on a fire.
Yeah.
You go out, you're going to do this run on the prone, and then you get to your point where you should come in, and it's only been 20 minutes. And you're like, I wish I'd parked my car further and paid more for the Uber to take me further to the start point. So it's
that
awesome.
happens. That's good though. At least you having more time out in the fun and less. Again, then more time afterwards. You pay for it, but that's future. That's future me's problem.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So I've got a few questions here. So on your learning for downwind foil, did you have any overwhelmingly unsuccessful runs, especially on the prone and the sup, I guess?
On the prone, on the sup. So any really bad ones on the sup? Actually, recently, I got some new wings from Axis, which was the V1 980, and I had a Sonova 510, which was 26 wide.
Yeah.
And that was probably my first failure ever, having to go in and then wait at the traffic lights, freezing cold. It was like early season. I think I went with Boothie and Marcus and maybe Dave Delroy. I think he had a wing. He might have had a wing ding or something.
Yeah.
And I just could not get going, mate. And I was like, fuck, like I couldn't. Yeah, so I paddled from.
So just too small a foil, was it, or combination foil?
It's definitely a hard foil to get going. It's my go-to foil now for downwinding, provided it's over 15 knots.
Yeah.
But I was convinced it was the board, and that proved to be true. It was 5'10". It was too short.
Yeah.
Didn't have enough length. And once I got my new board that I've got at the moment,
which is
it's an Aviator 6'1", kind of a custom. Like the bottom's not as kind of aviatory. It's just a bit more mellow.
A bit more mellow.
But yeah, basically it's an Aviator 6'1", 25.5.
Yep.
And I think it's 89 litres.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, sounds like a scaled up version of what I've got, because I got a 6x24 and it's 78 litres, which I sink it, but if you can paddle up and you don't come down ever again, happy days. If you're coming up and down the whole time, you're pissed off.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny, man. Like when Marcus had the Aviator protos and he had a couple other prototypes, I borrowed the square nose one he had.
Yeah.
And that was, 74 litres. And it was so light though. And I'm like, mate, give me that board. I just want to take it out and give it a crack. And I took it out, and like you said, it's underwater. Like I've got some video of it. I'm standing. I think that was 24 wide as well. And it was like, but mate, as soon as I started paddling for a chop, it was a joke. Like I could not believe how quick I could get it up. Like it had the stability in the nose because it was square. But like you said, you didn't want to be coming down much, because then you had to stand on it and balance, and you're losing a lot of energy. But I kind of shocked myself on that board, getting that going, because I really didn't think I'd be able to do it. But
and that's what I was saying before, is the smaller board, as long as you can balance on it, it's fine. But as soon as you can't get too small and your balance is gone, it's game over. And if you go too big or too short and wide, it's almost like you're making it too hard for yourself too. So like you said, like longer, narrower, with stability, but as small as you can go stability wise, and you're going to make it as easy as you can for you. And normally your first sup isn't going to be the one you end up on, because there's a learning curve. Yeah.
Well, and you just gotta remind yourself that if you're downwinding on a prone, it's never going to be the same as downwinding on a sup. I enjoy both of them equally for different reasons, but I'm not going to be able to do the turns I can on a sup that I can on a prone. Yeah. I'm not going to enjoy the freedom. Well, not the freedom. Just you just can't ride them the same. You can't ride the sup the same as the prone, but with the sup, I can have as many. I learned a new word the other day. The OC1 guys, have as many hoolies as you want, but you can get going again on the sup again. Whereas the prone, it's a rare event that I come down on the prone, because I know I can't come down on the prone.
Yeah, so let's because I'm sure you've got a story where you came down on the prone and it was a long paddle in. Surely.
No, I don't, mate.
You don't?
I don't. No, I've had a couple where I've come down, but it's been like a couple minutes paddle in, like 5 minutes, 6 minutes max. Like,
So, but okay, what's the furthest out point you think you potentially could have had you fallen?
2 kilometres.
Yeah.
2 kilometres or more. So that was probably that was the big one that I did on the GoFoil setup from Rouse Head, North Mole to City Beach. That one I was talking about, Sam, where he was going from on the sup, and that I was looking at, and I don't know why, I just wanted to do it, and one day I was actually pretty fatigued from the foil brain and foiling too much. And I just went, Nick, I just feel like hitting this up. I just want to go and do this and get it done, because I've been thinking about it for ages. I just want to send it from here. And he was like, okay. And I went, can you just drop me off like at the start? And he goes, no, man, I'm coming. Like I'm watching this. Like,
I remember hearing his stories. He was like following you down the coast.
Yeah. So so we went out there, found like a super sketchy pointy rock to jump off. And
I've got the video, so I'm going to share it. So I'm going to get you to talk us through it, because it is definitely worth. All right, here we go.
Oh, funny. Yeah,
This is
classic.
it, yeah.
I might add, that was first drop, James, so I was pretty happy with that.
Yeah, here we go.
I weighed it out, and that was first drop, so I was stoked. So it was
Very
like,
good.
boom, straight in clean. And I had my phone with me, shoved a couple flares in the back, and I just
So you
went,
were prepared for the worst.
yeah, like we do some pretty wild stuff, and like, people who aren't ocean minded and unexperienced in the water think, it's crazy, or it's dangerous. But I don't go out there, and I'm not unprepared. I do always think about the consequences and worst case scenarios, and what would I do in the event this happens or that happens. So it's not like I don't think these things through. But I just said to Mick, I'll just see if you can keep an eye on me to Cottesloe. If it's good, I feel like things are going good, I'm just going to keep going.
Yeah.
And but I was done by the time I got to City Beach. My legs were killing me. It was because the volume of that wing.
Yeah, it's a big wing. Like you've got to be having good bumps and being able to turn and really enjoy it to really.
Yeah.
But I'd imagine on a prone board like that far out in this video now, like you can't even see you're that far out. You really you can turn, but you don't turn so hard that you're risking falling. And it's
no, I wasn't turning, mate. It was literally eyes straight ahead. Don't look into the beach. Just keep the foil down deep, even if it's tiring. Keep it low, because the biggest risk was overfoiling and then having to paddle 2Ks in, which I really didn't want to do.
Yeah.
Sharky waters. It was just, keep looking straight ahead. And when you're kind of so focused, you're so focused, like it was literally, you can't enjoy those kind of runs. Like I haven't done that run since on the prone, maybe one day again on the new gear, but the whole time I was out there, it was just crazy mental concentration. Like next bump, next bump, next bump. No turns, just literally pump, get through.
Survival
don't overfoil.
mode.
Yeah, totally. It was you fall, you die. That's all I was thinking about, was treat it like that. Do not fall. And then once I kind of got into Cottesloe, I wasn't that far out after that. I might have been 500 meters off the coast. So I'm like, whatever, like that's 15 minute paddling, who cares? So, that was that one, and got that done, and that was pretty fun. But those old
interesting.
Mate,
So
they were
I
hard.
chatted to Kahi a little while ago, and he did one from China Wall basically to Kaimana, which it's a similar distance prone, but and similar in the they might even be a little bit further out. It's about 2.5 kilometers from the furthest out point to the beach, and the coast sort of bends around back towards them. So there's a really sketchy section where if they fall, like he said, 45 minutes. If he the first time he did fall, and he had a 45-minute paddle in.
Oh shit! Okay. Yep.
A long, like that's you fall, you die kind of thing,
Yeah, totally. But that's the thing about the prone. Like, I love prone runs. I love the simplicity of taking my board apart, calling the Uber. I put my 4-foot board in the boot, drops me off at the start. I put it together, scoop in off a wave, run down the beach. Not too far out. If I come down, I can catch another wave and keep going. And I love that. I love the feeling of being on the prone. But there are those limitations, and you can't really relax as much as you can on the SUP. I'll have way more crashes and overfalls on the SUP because I know I can push it.
Doesn't matter.
And it doesn't matter. Like I can push a turn if I want. I can just bomb runs the whole way down the coast, and who cares? Like, but on the prone, you have to be calculated, I guess.
Yeah.
Exactly. If you're doing those runs that are a long way out, or if you've got time constraints, daylight hours and that kind of stuff.
The prone runs can either be 20 minutes or an hour and 20 minutes.
I've had a couple like that, mate, where I couldn't even get started, and it was getting dark, and then I'd have to paddle way down the beach and try and find somewhere where there's a wave, because at certain times of year it's almost shore break, and it's knee high deep water, so you can't even get the clearance to get up and pump out to sea. But love them both. equally for different reasons. Yeah.
I'm the same. I love the challenge of the prone downwinding, but for me, because I have a SUP background, like the SUP isn't. I'm kind of used to the bigger board in the open ocean swells too, because I've done more of it.
Yep.
So I'm like you said, the time constraint. Like I can do a SUP downwind run, whether I fall or not, in half an hour. For a good 12 kilometers. Like no problems, you're done. Whereas a prone, it could be half an hour, or it could be an hour and a half. It's just like if I've got a window of time, I'm going to be supping, and if I've got unlimited time and I want to play around with some stuff, I'll go prone. But it's that risk reward.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, totally. I've done a few with the guys. Did a long one from Cottesloe to Sorrento on the prone.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to get a wave there, and they'd already, they'd left. They were gone, and I'm sitting there for 20 minutes trying to catch a wave. And then that was another funny story. Got a wave, lots of weed. Had to kind of get another wave at Scarborough. Had to come in, catch another wave, pumped out to sea, and they'd started looking for me, driving around trying to find me. And I was way out off Waterman's, and I had my phone, and my phone started ringing.
Yeah.
And fucking idiot. I tried to answer it. So I got my phone ringing. No. It's in the case, and I'm like bombing on the prone. I'm looking at my phone, and I'm like, oh, it's Marcus. Oh, they must have started looking for me. So I've tried to answer it through the plastic case.
Oh, it doesn't work.
But nothing was working. So I put it down. I'm trying to concentrate, and I'm still going. And then it started ringing, and then it came up with the option. You know how it says those generic statements like, I'll call you back in 5 or whatever?
Yeah.
I managed to click on one. It said, sorry, I'm busy right now. And I sent that, to So it went through, and then almost immediately after I did that, I overboiled, and then I was like, oh, shit, So I had to paddle in, and then I walked up to the main road, and I just waited there, and they came and found me. But that was one of those occasions where I should have just taken this up, because I was with other people as well, so then it stuffs them around, and with time
it's hard to prone foil with people, I've found too, because if you're chipping in on the same wave, even if you're on the same wave, it's hard to pull off at the same time. And then I did one with Zane the other day, and he we took off on the same wave, all three of us, and we were going out, and Zane was a bit in front, and I'm like, I'll try to go further out to catch him. And we just ended up being a couple hundred meters apart the whole time, and just sort of bouncing along, and you're sort of like, you just...
Mick and I have done quite a few. We've done quite a few together, and we've done quite a few where he's got up first and gone, I've got up first and gone, or neither of us have got up, and then it's just like, I'll see you at the end kind of thing. So that's another positive about the SUP, is you can wait for each other, you can stop, you can, if one person's not getting up straight away, you can wait for them to get up, and vice versa. So again, both very different sports, and both sick. Love them both.
I think you're right. That's the right attitude for different occasions.
Totally.
You can do the prone. It's all just about upskilling and having the options, which I think is so cool.
And if it's like proper bombing, I want to be on my SUP. Like I don't want to be on my prone, because it gets really hard to handle. Like I remember Mick and I went out and did one, I don't know, last year before, and it was by Perth standards, it was big. It was like a 2.5 meter swell running. It was 25, 30 knots, and when you're on a 4-foot board in 30 knots in a 2.5 meter swell,
sometimes the extra weight is a good thing.
Oh yeah, you want that extra weight, and you want that extra nose in front of you for the balance. Like I felt like I was on it was hectic. That was like that whole run was like a safety run. It was like, get the hell out of here, come around it, go down, get the hell out of here again. And we both came in and went, oh man, I think that was a SUP day. And you work that out. Work it out. But then some days you just want to get in there and get smashed, or and then you got to try and catch a head high one in shore break on the beach, which could take an hour.
I love the stories of the Perth crew downwinding. It's like, oh, the shores are massive, we got, and it's a gnarly shore, because it goes like there's nothing, and then all of a sudden it just goes whack onto the beach. Yeah, and there's just carnage, absolute carnage.
And if it's not windy enough, it's really hard to scoop into a wave on the short board doing that. because you don't want the wave. You want that kind of double up behind it, which is just a nice fat little bit of white water. And then if you kind of ride the back and get out, you don't really, when it's really sucky, you don't want to be catching those waves.
Not especially on a downwind foil. Yeah.
Nah, not on the prone board. Like, yeah, that's it. It's just too hairy. But depends what time you want to get home, I guess. Sometimes you just got to go it.
Coming home late.
Yeah. I'll send my wife a message. Not going so well.
Yeah.
ETA could be 30 minutes, could be 2 hours.
30 to 3 hours.
Yeah. I could get up and be home in 15, or I could be scratching around in this shore break for another hour.
Yeah. Okay, I know you've done some crazy downwind runs. A couple you've done. We're going to pull up some video of you doing the Rock Nest back to Sorrento, I assume. Which is,
that was a ripper.
Yeah, so there's a race, the Doctor, that they actually do that, but you decided to do it on your own day. And technically, I think legally, there's shipping lanes and stuff out there, so you need high vis and all this sort of stuff. And I'm sure, but I guess I want you to run us through the dangers that are present in doing these sort of downwind runs, and also sort of just go through what safety precautions you did take, because I know you did, but also talk us through what could have gone wrong, because there's like Perth, I know you guys don't talk about it, but there are big sharks, like great white sharks are known to be, they're in all waters, all oceans, but there's been a few incidents in Western Australia. There's also seaweed, which I'm actually more scared of seaweed in Perth than I probably am of sharks, because there's more seaweed than there is sharks, and seaweed foiling sucks.
We found that out, mate. We found that out firsthand. Yeah.
So let me pull the video up. But yeah, talk us through. Yeah, tell us the dangers and what was good, what was bad.
Well, the fact that Mick went out on the piss all night the night before was probably a bad start. But we'd been talking about it for ages, and it's always so hard to get someone with a boat. And can you commit to taking the weekend off so you can follow us from Rottnest to wherever we're finishing? But finally, the forecast looked pretty good. This was a really south day. It was probably too much south in this day. But I booked the tickets. I was like, Mick, this day's looking really good. He'd had a big night out, which he didn't tell me until I met him at the ferry terminal. And at that point, he'd actually been working all day as well. And he had a pretty savage job at that time. He was working like a maniac. He was putting struts in for power poles, so like really physical work. And he'd been doing that hungover. So I'd got a ferry ride from North Mole to Rottnest. Got the tickets. Wife dropped me off. Met Mick there. We had and this is the thing. This is when low aspect wings were basically the only thing you could get. I think GoForm might have just started having high aspect wings, and I know Signature
coming out, which was such a breakthrough.
And I know Signature and Unifor had the high aspect wings, and I knew it was all about the high aspect wings, but we just didn't have kind of access to them. So I was riding the 920. Mick was riding the 102, which were like massive wings,
huge.
But we, when we set over, I got the ferry ticket. I knew how much daylight hours we had. So I'd calculated if we had a really shit time, and we were averaging like 9-10 Ks an hour, we would still make it in by dark.
Yeah.
Which was smart because that's basically what happened.
I was just about to say.
So I'd worked all that out, and I'd calculated how long it would take us to get from point A to point B if things weren't going well. So anyway, we got to Rottnest, walked right out to the point where I'd already checked out on the maps, and I know the area quite well. I've been here a lot of times. This is where we need to go from. We're going to go from here. We need to be out at this point at this time to give us enough time to get from here to Sorrento.
Yeah.
So I had the marine radios, had the EPIRBs, had the life jackets.
Yeah.
I had a mate of mine who lives in Freo with a boat on standby. I had the Safe Tracks app on. I had a group of people that were getting live updates, text messages, location stuff, pinging on their phones, at this time. So they could live track where him and I were at all
times. They could join the journey.
Yeah. And and after it, they're like, "Oh yeah, we could see where you were, and you look like you were going good." And I'm like, "Oh man, like yeah, we could see you were here, and this is where you were." And I'm like, "Yeah, but that's it wasn't going great." Like, so so we went out, and Mick had that white custom board, and he'd shimmed his rear wing quite heavily and hadn't really tested it. But he's super fit, he's super skilled. Very good waterman. So, whatever. He's been riding boards all his life like I have. So no dramas there. So we got started. I got going pretty much straight away. And there's a big current pulling around the island there. And so you did the race, that start bit quite challenging. Yeah, so like we started from where we did in the race. That first 5Ks, it felt really weird. Like it was like there was lots of water underneath affecting the flight of the foil. And anyway, I got going, no worries, covered a fair bit of ground. And then Mick wasn't kind of coming, so I was like, oh, I'm going to stop and wait for him. And then he got going, came over to me, and he was, I could see it in his face, he was rattled. He was like looking at me going, fuck, like, because he'd had a big night, been working all day, and he was rattled. And I was like, mate, I kind of, I just said, look, if you don't want to do it now, we need to call it. I need to call my mate, come and get us, because if we keep going and you're feeling this way, we're not going to make it. Like it's going to take him ages to launch the boat, get out and come and get us. I just reassured him, of his skill set, our skill set. We knew what we were doing. We had all the safety precautions in place. I told him I'd calculated how long it would take us to get from A to B if we're having a terrible time.
Yeah.
So then, like asshole. But it was all good. So then that shit me, because then as soon as we set off again, he started foiling straight away, and then I was having a shit time. I couldn't get going. So
this is actually one of the things. Foiling with someone is hard. Like it's hard to stick together.
I was spewing, and I had quite a long mast on, so that didn't help, because the longer your mast is, the further away it is from the source of the power of the wind shot.
Yeah.
And then old low aspect wind. So yeah, gave me his little pep talk, and he's like, I'm out, and he's gone, and I'm like, oh shit, like, and I'm grinding away trying to get going, and I'd get going, and I could see him kind of disappearing, and I'm like, sweet, that's good. Like, I'm really happy he's having a good run now. And then the whole time I'm out there, man, I'm just seeing those, I don't know what those birds are, but those birds are just chopping up over those chops, like gliding. And the whole time I'm just thinking,
are they like little mutton birds? They're just like sort of flying on the surface.
The whole time I'm just going, I need a high aspect wing. Like this would be so different out here if I had a high aspect wing right now. And so yeah, didn't have the speed to maintain through those chops, because there's a lot of ocean swell, there's a lot of wind swell, there's a lot of chop, and just couldn't, keep that momentum. You just find yourself in no man's land. And then, to come with that, he was over there, and there was this big line of weed. So every time I'd track that way, I'd see the weed and I'd pull out, and then it'd come to a point where I'm like, I have to go through it. So then I'd catch weed and come down and start all over again. It was just a process of hitting weed, coming down, grinding really hard to get going again, getting really tired. And then kind of, Mick was having a fly. He was doing really well, but I was kind of stuck between this. I don't know, like we were pretty fatigued, but I was never like concerned. Like I was never worried. Like my biggest concern the whole time out there was daylight hours. That's all I was worried about.
Yeah.
The whole time. And that's what I said to him. I was like, mate, I've calculated, I figured it out. We're going to be in before dark, and that's all that matters. So it was never in doubt that we would get to shore. It was just whether we would get there before dark. And so we finally got through. That ferry footage you showed, that was a mate of mine. His mate was doing work on the island. He was actually going back on the ferry, and he took that footage and sent it to his mate, because Alan, I think I told Alan we were going to do a run.
Yeah.
And so Alan sent me that footage, and I had a good laugh, because that looked hectic.
Yeah.
So
this is epic footage. As the ferry wakes, you're just like full wake thieving too.
Well, yeah, those you could hear the guys on the boat going, "Oh, the wake's going to get him. The wake's going to get him." Little did they know, Jimmy. Little did they know. So, yeah, that was when it was going pretty thick at the start. But then, once we got, this is probably like, I don't know, a couple K offshore, and it was all good. Like it was way darker than it was there, but I was like,
how long did it take? Because like I'm just measured, it's about 25 Ks, just give or take.
It was probably just under 3 hours.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, under 3 hours. And then, you and I did it a couple of years later on higher speed wings, and then they're pretty dated higher speed wings now, and did it in like an hour 20.
Yeah.
So that was weed affected that race as well. So it was 100% equipment. 3 hours versus an hour 20. The higher spec wings just ate it up, and did that race and wasn't even tired. Like,
how is it?
Wasn't even hard work. It was, it was a joke. So, I know you guys were full race mode, and I just wanted to have a clean run and get there in a time that I thought was reasonable without feeling totally spent like that last one. I just wanted to have a good run, because that one Mick and I did was
no good.
it was no good, and it was no good weed, and it was no good, old low spec wings, which just couldn't do what we needed.
And also by sounds with that longer masks, which kind of gives you more weed collection too. Which, for those that don't know, in Western Australia, the ribbon weed is a serious problem for foiling. Like, it could be blowing 30, 35 knots, but you'd be lucky to average 3 30-minute Ks. You're looking at 18 kilometers per hour. Like, you're struggling and you're just working so hard to stay up on the foil, and you've got to stop to get the weed off, or go so fast and turn hard to try to do what you can to get rid of the weed. But it sucks. It's the only problem with Perth.
Yeah, it is what it is. But you have weeks and days and runs where there's none.
Yes, for sure.
So I think early season is probably the best time. I've noticed the pattern. Early season is kind of when it's not shedding. Yeah. So when I'm doing big sends on the prone, that's when I'll go early season.
Yeah.
And then it's weird. It seems when there's a bit of west swell, it pulls all that ribbon weed off kind of out the back of Rottnest and pushes it in.
Yeah.
And then I feel like it's a mix of west swell or a big swell, but you can have weeks where there's none. You can have runs where it's totally avoidable and you can see it coming. But I think the thing with the long mast is, unless you're riding that mast and the wing where it's meant to be, there's no point in having a long mast, because you can do the same with a 750, and that's all I ride. I ride the 750 in everything, light conditions to bombing conditions, because I find that when I'm riding the long mast, I've still got the board at the same distance from the surface of the water out of it. So, so unless you're going to be riding really high, which then affects your center of gravity and becomes a lot more tippier, there's really no point in riding that longer mast. With the wingding and all that, ride the 860. Yeah, because you've got the clearance. But for the SUP, I don't feel I've got that stability with the kind of, I think it was an 860 kind of mast length. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. If you're under power, whether it be from wind, from a wing, or getting towed in by a jet ski, a long mast is sweet. But
exactly.
As long as when you're downwinding, and if you're comfortable at this certain height, and if you're riding the same height with a 82 centimeter mast and a 75 centimeter mast, the 82's just got more drag, more foil, more mast in the water, whereas the 75's up higher. So I like the 82 centimeter mast personally, just because here in Sydney we got lots of backwash. So all that backwash, it's more likely, and there's a bit more swell, so you're more likely to touch down. But I've tried the 92, and it's too much. It's just too much. Yeah. Yeah,
80. I could go on 82 for sure. Yeah, 82 would be good. I don't know that I'd go any bigger than that. Yep. Yeah. So that was that story.
And there's one more story, and I want to sort of start to wrap things up. So we've got one more story, and then we've got 3 tips for those looking to downwind foil, getting into it, whether it be prone or SUP, whatever you choose, or even we haven't even touched on winging. There's too much time, too many things, but not enough time. So
how long's it been, mate?
It's been about an hour now. So I try to keep them below an hour 20. So we'll see how we go.
Yeah. Oh, I feel sorry for the people having to watch this for an hour. Jesus. Okay.
Yeah, poor
We'll try and make this next story as entertaining as the last, hopefully.
Yeah,
which I
I'm going to bring the
guarantee
footage
you
too.
it will be. Yeah.
All right. This is just recently.
Yeah, this was last weekend, last Sunday.
Yeah.
The boys were saying Sunday, bloody Sunday, which is kind of what it was for some of them. Not for me. I had a great time.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so that's leading into the bridge. So that's a mix of swell. So the swell is just pushing right in there. And I'm aiming for that bridge. So I'm trying to get through them.
Actually, let's back up because I want to get the full story. Where did you start from? So you were telling me earlier. So let me get rid of this.
So if you go further south to Rockingham, here you go. So Point Perrin. See Point Perrin there?
Yep. So
and then straight through the bridge to see where it says Naval Base.
Yep.
Click on there. What's that? Yeah, 10, pretty much 10 exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the run you did. Epic.
So that's the run that we did. Yeah. That I've never done that run. I've done a run from basically there to Fremantle, which is, if you had a look north, see where it says number 12.
Yeah.
In the blue. That's the run from there you would usually do in summer, but that's a long way from home for me, and that's pretty much in protected waters.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no reason for me to go down there unless it's like winter when there's kind of nothing else happening and the swell's too big up my end to get out in and too much seaweed and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So, and then I guess the wind direction must have been pretty onshore too, which I guess it normally is in winter.
So west, southwest. So pretty much perfect angle for that run. So that's why we did that run.
Yeah.
And the boys, the OC1 boys had done that run, I think the week before in similar conditions, but this was super spicy. This was probably 10 to 15 knots more. So it was averaging 40 knots.
Yeah.
And I had a look at the wind. Yeah. See, in lieu of the island there, it's like glassy, mate. And then but yeah, most of the time I was out there, it was 45 to 55 knots, and it was like there was some hectic squalls like blowing me off the front of the board basically.
Yeah.
But so sick. But yeah, so this section was really fun. Aiming towards this is after the bridge, a fairway after the bridge.
Yeah.
So when I was out there, kind of looking to my left, you can see those ships. When I was out there, I was like, oh, okay. It must be like pretty hectic out here if all the sea container ships are anchored in behind Garden Island, because they're all usually out of Perth, in front of Rottnest.
Yep.
But I've never seen so many ships anchored in there ever. Like, it was pretty much all of them. I reckon it was 10 ships anchored in protected waters from Garden Island. So,
just for people watching this, like, if you're listening to it on Spotify or a podcast, it's sort of, you can't see it, but we're showing Nathan's downwind run and the footage, and it's crazy. Like the runs are literally like, they look big in the GoPro footage, and GoPro always makes it look so much smaller than what it was. These must have felt like they were head high bumps. Yeah,
that as I'm heading to the bridge there, over to the left, kind of more into the middle, like that's like I was kind of coming in. One of the guys in the OC1s were kind of maybe a couple of 100 meters in front of me, and I could see where they were. And there was like proper waves breaking through. I've never seen waves break through there, and it was like head high, kind of rolling though, like not really steep.
Yeah,
so all the
water super stretched out. Yeah,
but it was like, I was like going, holy shit, I've never seen waves break out here. I don't go down there very often, but that's usually like boating waters, like super nice, protected.
Yeah.
Go for a snorkel kind of waters. But yeah, I came in that one, and then through those swells, and then I saw the guys ahead of me on the OCs, and they were like got on a couple bombs, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so happy I'm on a foil out here and not on a bloody OC1.
Yeah, because in bigger conditions, the foil comes into its own because you're above. So you're just flying above it. Whereas
was,
the longer boats and surf skis and outriggers and even stand-ups, like it's gnarly. Whereas for a foil, you're just hovering above it.
Yeah. And, obviously being sensible with the conditions, but, all had the PLBs, PFDs, had systems in place, had a good discussion about getting from A to B and doing it safely. But I was kind of on my own, and then there was probably 5 or 6 guys in OC1s.
Yep.
And got to the bridge, and this is where it gets pretty radical. Got to the bridge, and I actually paddling out here. Obviously, everyone left me, and you know what it's like on a foil. If you're with paddlers, they all just go off.
Yeah.
And I was paddling out, tracking out on my knees, just going. I want to kind of get out into the middle before I get up going. Like I just want to get a feel for it. Want to get warmed up. Want to make sure I'm out in the middle before I get up and go.
Yeah.
So I'm heading out there, and I'm seeing all of them going off. And I'm like, oh man, this looks so sick. And got out there, and saw the guys in the OC1s, and one of the blokes was having a hard time, like he was getting flipped out because the wind was hitting him from the side, and those outriggers have him on the left. I'm like, oh man, he needs the thing on the right. And I don't know anything about OC1 paddling. I'm like, man, if he had it on the right, it'd be sweet. So he was, again, all really experienced guys, elite guys, and he was flipping out heaps. And I was like, oh shit, and the bridge has got a long groin going out as well, and he's not even out in the middle. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to hang. I'll stay nearby this guy for a while, just kind of keep an eye on him. And he was flipping out and getting in and flipping out. It was super cold, man. It was like a hailstorm came in when we're heading out.
Yeah.
Whatever, wind, rain, hail, who cares?
Yeah.
Just wind and water. Yeah, I didn't care. He was having a rough time, and then I thought, you know what, I'm gonna leave him. I'll go to the bridge and I'll wait there. Got to the bridge, all the guys are waiting, and I was like, oh look, there's a couple guys coming. They're sweet. Guy at the back, he was swimming a lot, and he didn't have a lot of warm gear on either.
Yeah.
He had all his paddling gear, life jacket, PLB, all the stuff, all the safety gear. And just wait here. Like one of the guys said, just don't leave. I'll wait here with you. Let's just make sure he gets through. And other guys came through, and then we waited for a while. It was so hard to keep position because it was like 100k hour winds, and I'm sitting there on the board getting blown backwards. And all good. Again, never concerned, never worried. Like just super windy. And one of the guys, I was like, man, you need to stay. Like we're not going until he comes through. I made that very clear to him, and he goes, yep, all good, mate. So I hang around, and then after a while, I'm like, oh, sweet, can see him now. He's coming, and the guy was waiting as well. He's like, yep, all good, Nate. Off you go. I'm like, sweet. So I was like, awesome. Turned around and went, and at least he was with him. So if he was having a hard time, at least he
wasn't your problem anymore. Yeah, you've offloaded.
And they, to be honest, I wasn't with those guys, and just kind of went along with them. But I didn't know them. I didn't know the guy, and I knew who they were, and I knew that they were all elite paddlers. So I went and had that footage. It was, like you said, it never does it justice. It was fucking out of control.
But it looks out of control in the footage too.
Yeah. But again, when I say it's out of control, like to me, it's not out of control. Like I never felt. Yeah, I never felt like I was in danger. Like the one thing I did think about was, that bloody stringy bit on your board. That you attach your leg rope to.
Oh yeah.
I was packing a double string. I've never packed a double string, but I went the double because I was like, man, the main thing out here is losing my board, which I don't want to. That's the one thing I don't want to do is I don't want to lose my board. And obviously checked all my equipment over before I went out. Made sure screws were tied up. Made sure I had everything. Like double checked it, triple checked it because. The main thing was the cold. It was like if something happens, you don't want to be in that water for a period of time. And that's the reason why I wore a wetsuit. I don't usually wear a wetsuit, but I thought pretty cold today.
Yeah.
If something happens, I want to be warm.
Yeah, you're better off being too hot than too cold in those situations.
Yeah, totally. So got to the end, flew through a few guys after frothing. It was like epic. And got into the beach, and mate, I got absolutely smashed on the beach. I was walking up the beach with my board, and this squall came through, and I had my board on my shoulder. Idiot, like that was, I shouldn't have done that, and it just hit my board and literally threw me through the air, and I just let go of my board, and the rear wing, I thought it had like taken my ear off, because like those rears I've got are pretty sharp, and
especially in the cold.
Oh mate, and I had that waist leash on. I literally, my board was like a 4-wheel drive snatching another 4-wheel drive out of the bog. Like it just, the board went, and then it took me. And then, but the good thing was having the foil on the board. The foil was like an axe, and it just stopped in the ground. But yeah, that was probably the most dramatic thing that happened for me out there.
Yeah.
And then got on the beach. All the other guys, all good, hanging around for the other two, kind of going, did you see him, Nathan? I'm like, yeah, I told him to wait. He came through, all good. I think they'll be fine. We'll just hang around here. Still hadn't turned up. I'm like, it's a bit shit. And then one of the guys, next car's at the start, and he goes, mate, I'll take you to your car. We've got our phones. The other two guys are going to stay at the finish, make sure everyone gets across the line safe. We went. Then one of the guys calls, and he's like, can't find them, still haven't turned up. And I still wasn't worried, because I knew they had processes in place. Worst comes to worst, you pull the PLB, someone comes and rescues you. At least they're together, whatever.
And PLB, for those, it's like
it's an EPIRB. It's a personal locator beacon. It notifies sea surf and rescue, helicopters, all that stuff. So we're going back to my car, get a phone call from one of the guys. It's kind of a weird phone call. It was like, this guy's come in. I won't mention names. This guy's come in. The other guy, we kind of don't know where he is. I don't know. I think they're like, he's come in. He's really cold. Blah blah blah. I'm like, fuck. And I don't really know. But obviously, I'm not going to bugger off. I'm going to hang around and make sure everyone's safe. So the other guy I'm with, he goes, "Yep, all right. We'll take you to your car. I'm going to go have a look here. I'll go have a look here." I'm like, "Yep, no worries. I'll go have a look here." But anyway, I'm like, he's like, "Nate, you were never here. Just go home." I was like, "No, I'll hang around, mate. Like, give me a call as soon as you know something. I want to help out and make sure everyone's all good." Which I was confident everything was fine. The two options I saw was he's either called it and they both paddled in somewhere to a beach, kind of where it's safe, maybe couldn't handle the conditions, or I thought equipment malfunction, something like that. They're still floating out there. They're either going to drift in late, or that was basically the two scenarios I'd thought about. So got my car, and I'm like, all right, I'm out. Give me a call as soon as you know something. I'll hang around here for another kind of 30, 45 minutes. If you need me, call me, tell me where you want me to go, whatever. So anyway, I'm on the side of the road, and I've checked all these bays and whatever, and he goes, the phone rings. I'm like, oh shit, I'm a bit nervous. And I was like, just because obviously I didn't want anything to happen.
Yeah.
And he calls me and he goes, yeah, I just wanted everyone to be safe. And he calls me and goes, "Mate, yeah, it's all good. We got him." I was like, who got him? He's like, "Oh, we picked him up." I was like, "Who's picked him up?" And he goes, "Choppers picked him up." And I went,
"Oh no,
what?" And he goes, "Then it's all good. The choppers picked him up." I was like, "What? Say again?" And so anyway, it was one of those scenarios. Like literally just after I left them, he goes, at the bridge, he came through, just got clipped by a wave and hoolied, and broke the outrigger, so broke the arms on the outrigger, and then which then means the craft's inoperable.
Sinking.
And there was still, well, you just can't sit in it. It's like a ski breaking a rudder. Like you can't paddle it. So the guy that was with him did an amazing job. Like he even had gaffer tape and tape with him, literally taped up the main part of the OC1 to his outrigger. So they're literally raft up, just sitting there.
Wow.
And they just, so like they were like happy days, just sitting there, just like whatever. And they were like,
so he broke the outrigger or the bit on the side?
Yeah, so the bit on the side, the arms had broken. Yeah, so the armour, that had broken. So once that happens, you can't, like a ski losing its rudder, you can't sit in it, basically.
It's like paddling a ski with only one paddle, because you balance with the two skis. Exactly. Yeah, so it's inoperable.
It's inoperable. So
at least I thought it snapped in half. So I thought it was sinking. I was like, oh, geez, how do they gaffer tape that? But okay, that makes sense.
So no, he just taped his armour to his ski or whatever it is, and I saw the footage of them. They looked super comfortable, but he'd been pretty cold. I think he'd been pretty cold, and it was more of a time thing that they made the decision to do the EPIRB, because in those conditions and how cold
it all goes wrong quickly.
Sure. So they made the right call to just, obviously you don't want to use an EPIRB ever, but because the conditions were so cold, it was like, well, this could take us 2 hours to get to the finish, not being able to paddle very well, rafted up together, or maybe not even make it to that point. So it's like it came to the point where they made the decision, well, we're just going to have to cop it. I'm just going to have to pull the EPIRB. Someone's going to have to come and get me. And they did. All's well ends well. And the other guy paddled through to the finish unscathed. So that was that story. So
there's been a few interesting stories over in WA. Another one I heard was in the Doctor a couple of years ago, totally unrelated from foiling, but a surf ski guy, he fell off and his leash broke in the Doctor. I think it was a couple of years ago. It was super windy.
I was out at City Beach that day.
And the submarine picked this guy up. He pulled his EPIRB or his flare or whatever it was, and a submarine literally goes up next to him and saves this bloke.
Mate, I was out of City Beach foiling that day off the groin, and my father was doing it in a double ski, and I was out there foiling. I was actually concerned that day.
Yeah. It was. I was on my unlimited stand up, and me and
Jake you did that race.
Had an unreal back and forth race, and it was that was a crazy windy year.
Yeah, I remember it. It was hectic. There were rescues happening everywhere. My father and his mate had to get rescued, and their double epic ski washed up on the beach at the finish line. And my dad's mate's wife was there, and she kind of looked at the double ski wash up on the beach and was like, so he got picked up. But a lot of people kind of were just unable to get back in their skis that year. I think that year was, I think a lot of safety things got put into place after that race, and I'm glad they did. I felt like it was a little maybe underdone, and I thought that day was pretty extreme being out there at City Beach.
For me, as a competitor, I guess an elite competitor, that was one of the best races I've ever done. And it was the conditions. When you get better at something, you just want windier, bigger surf, bigger swell, whatever it is. That was the race of races. Jake Jensen and I had a hell battle back and forth, and there was a bit of weed out there. And I remember looking across, he just after we passed the centaur mark, and Jake comes flying past me. And then he does this massive nosedive, and he just goes over the hangers. And that was when I knew I'd got him. But we were just surfing bumps the whole way. There wasn't much paddling going on, which, for me, that's what it's all about. But safety, I train for those conditions, whereas a lot of people in those days, they would leave. And then all of a sudden they think they can do it for a race and lean on the safety from the event organisers. It's, not the right thing to do, I think.
Well, and that's not protected waters. Where we were last weekend is protected waters.
True.
I would never have gone out in those conditions in the open ocean.
Yeah.
So to go out in open ocean conditions when it's like that, that's a totally different story.
Yeah.
I vividly remember that afternoon at City Beach going, holy shit, the doctor's on today. But I saw the rescue boats driving up and down, in front of City Beach, and just thinking, oh man, because the age range of paddlers is quite broad, but it's at the top end. Like a lot of Molokai kind of paddlers, ocean racing ski paddlers are. They're not young guys.
The demographic is sort of 40 to 60 to 70 even.
Yeah.
There's a lot of older crew, and then there's the younger elite guys, but there's the majority of paddlers are older. Yeah.
And and the main thing is, if you can't get back into ski and you're fatiguing, then that's the main thing. Getting in those little narrow waist wide, phenolites and epics. They're really hard to get into when it's 30 knots and wind chops breaking over the top of you. And so, getting back in is the problem. Yeah, for sure.
Let's,
all right, mate.
Let's wrap up, because we got a little bit sidetracked, but I think that was a story worth sharing.
What was the question?
Stories, Nate. Yeah, thanks for sharing. 3 tips for those looking to get into downwind foiling, and maybe you want to start with the prone because that's what you start. Maybe 2 for prone and 1 for sup.
For prone, mate, even when I started foiling, people asked me for advice. I just went, I've got no advice for you. It is literally get on the board and go and do it, because I can't. There's nothing I can tell you.
Yeah.
There's nothing I can tell you that is going to help at this stage if you're just starting out. You've just got to get on it, feel it out, and nut it out. Because I can't. There's like
What about equipment? Surely you've had some advice on equipment.
So for a prone board,
yeah.
So for a prone board now, I'm thinking like maybe 4.8, something around that size. You don't want to make it too hard. Like if you wing, something like maybe a medium wing.
Yeah.
But the wings are so good now. Like
how is it when we learn? Like I remember the first Maliko. So this is before the Maliko 200. That thing was like, holy shit! This thing's actually, I can pump with this thing.
Oh mate, yeah. And
then the Maliko 200 came out. Like, this is awesome. I can go forever. And then the GL 180 came out, and that was like, that was the groundbreaker for me. I went from doing 20 k's an hour on the very, very best day ever on the Maliko 200 to on my slowest day doing 20. It's crazy.
It's just the efficiency, and obviously the more time you do it, you get better at it. But I can do these long runs now without even being fatigued.
Yeah,
just
high aspect.
Reading it. The high aspect. Definitely a high aspect wing. Definitely. Whether that's the Go 4 range or the Axis range or whatever, but it needs to be a.
And what sort of size? Because I see a lot of people try start with pretty small stuff, which I disagree with.
I agree with that sentiment. I'd be using, when we talk about big wings now and high aspect wings, they're not big wings like the low aspect big wings, because the surface area is so much smaller. And the chord length now is so short that a big wing doesn't feel like a big wing. So I guess so I guess a high aspect big wing, something around, I don't know what the Go 4s are, but mine, I downwind on the prone on the 880. So that's
small.
a mid. That's a pretty small wing, but
but that's, as you said, prone, you can get away with something smaller for sup. I guess let's go equivalent for sup. You'd probably be looking at
980 for me. You could use the V. I wouldn't recommend, someone of my size using that. I guess if you're learning on the Axis, you'd probably on the sup, mate, probably the low aspect wings or the 101 high aspect wings. So those ones with a big range. So that you want real low speed takeoff on the sup.
I heard the Axis 1150 pumps ridiculously well, but it's huge, right?
It's massive. But there were a couple of guys doing it on the river the other week in those conditions, and they're like, what should I use? And I was like, mate, get the biggest wings you can get. Get the biggest real. Get the biggest rear wing you can get the biggest front wing you can get, because you just need all the assistance you can get, especially if you're not a sup paddler. You don't have the strength or the timing or the skill set. So, and just patience, but also time on board. I didn't start sup downwinding for, Nick and I had been foiling for, I don't know, years. Surf foiling and catching boat wakes and doing downwinds on the prone. So we'd already had a lot of experience and knew how foils worked and knew about setup.
Mm-hmm.
So leaping straight into it is going to be difficult. So I guess, what you're doing with your coaching, spoke to a few guys over here last season who said that was really helpful, like what you've set up.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it, like with the, I guess, my online modules, it's just giving people the advice and then like encouraging them to get out there and give it a crack. Because as you said, there's nothing that you can give people advice, but if they take it on, great. But they've got to put it into practice. If they don't put it into practice, it's just advice.
Yeah.
Like if you take the advice and put it into practice, you're going to get results. So it's I guess what I found with the coaching, like my online stuff, is I get like a Facebook group, and I have like a Friday wins and a Talkback Tuesday. Talkback Tuesday is all about posting footage and telling us, what you've done, any questions, get them out there, we're going to answer it. And Friday wins is about telling us what your goals are for the next week and what you achieved in the week just gone. So it's encouraging people to get out there and give it a crack and asking the questions and then putting the answers into practice. Because if you just go around asking for advice and you don't actually put the time in, you're never going to get better at anything.
No, and you need to lower your expectations as well. You need to kind of be out there, not expecting that you're going to get up foiling the first time, the second time, maybe even the third time. If you can just stand on that stuff and paddle along and feel the board start to take off here and there, that's a win.
Yeah.
And then after that, anything that happens after that is, you incrementally, you're going to get better eventually. If you've got some background in board sports and foiling, it's going to click. And then once it clicks, it's a really fast process after that.
I totally agree. It's a really steep learning curve to start with.
Oh, huge.
But once you get over the hump, you're as good as anyone. Like once you learn to do it, the foils, you can only go so fast or so slow on these foils. So once you get over that hump, all of a sudden you're doing the same as you and I. Like you're downwinding and you could be weaving with us, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like it's hard, but once you get there, it's so rewarding. Like it's
the best thing ever. And a lot of it is just perseverance. That is the number one thing, is just persisting at it and persevering until you get it. And then as you have those little wins, you start asking people for advice. I see people down the beach all the time. Oh, Nathan, I'm doing this and this is what's happening. I'm like, well, you need to move your mast forward 2 millimeters because
it's or your weight forward or your foot or whatever it is. It's just there are little tips that you can give, but only after you've put in the time. And then once you've got the tips, put into practice, and you won't get it the first time, you won't get it the second time, but maybe the third time it'll click, and it's like, that's what James was talking about. That's what Nathan was talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing I've said to people, and the mistakes that we made, was more about paddling for everything. You can't paddle for everything. You just gotta have a good dig at it the first time. Have a couple of digs when a little chop picks you up. You want those little ones. And if you're unsuccessful, time out, sit on your board, recover and rest. Whereas Nick and I were getting so frustrated, we'd do a short run and we were just grinding like the whole way, which was, stupid, because then you're exhausted and there's no way you're going to get up foiling after that. So it's just, resting, have a good dig, sit on your board and have a break. When you're ready, have another dig, and then it's just that process of repeat until, I got up, or I didn't, we'll try next time.
Yeah.
So because it's an explosive, and it's an explosive start. It's full anaerobic, like, it's like a sprint.
10 to 20 strokes as hard as you can, and then it's glide. And I see a lot, and that's great advice. I see a lot of people, they just sort of go at this sort of 50% just down the whole run, and they never actually accelerate. It's like, why do you drop a car? Because you're just doing a downwinder on a 6-foot sup. Like you've got to, as you said, go for it. And if you miss it, stop, rest. Because when you're sitting down, resting, feet in the water, it stops you from getting blown down the coast. So you actually have more time of quality accelerations rather than just sort of, tapping along at this sort of half-assed downwind, just floating basically. Yeah, so sitting, waiting, exploding. I think.
Well, it's also the recovery time. Like you can't sustain that for 5Ks because you're using a lot of energy just standing on your board and trying to balance. So have a good dig. If not, sit down, rest, and just do that half a dozen times. But you just got to put in the time and have a go. And if you persist and persevere, then you'll get it.
Yeah.
Yep. And then that's it. Then you're down that dark wormhole that is foiling. And
Oil brand.
you're like me, you're probably not going to surf a shortboard again. I only just started surfing again, which took me, it's probably been 3 years. Frothing though, got some really good waves, but took half a dozen sessions and hundreds of waves before I got my feet back on my surfboard. But I've got it back now, and I'll try not to have too much of a break from it moving forward. But
you certainly learn when it's worth going for a surfer, when it's just worth just sticking with the foil. Your good, your foil wins.
I'm trying. That's it. Yeah, I'm trying to surf more in winter, and then if there's days like that, like last weekend when it was nuclear, I'll go and do that.
That's better than any
tomorrow. Yeah, exactly, because it's going to be pretty crazy here again the next 2 days. So I might just go down the river and fly to the stars. I don't know, take the ding, do something. Yeah, better than sitting around, isn't it, Jimmy?
That's it. Keep busy. Get out in the water. It's always pumping with a foil and a wing and a surfboard and all the toys and covering all conditions. And that's what I think it's all about. And I think
that's what it's all about. Yeah, it's you can do anything, anywhere, everywhere. That's the problem with it. It's so versatile, but it's also why it's so good, because you can. Yeah, there's always something to do.
Yeah.
It's good, mate.
Yeah. No, I think we'll wrap it up because we might have cracked the hour and a half mark, which is fine because we're frothing.
Cool.
But appreciate you coming on, Nath, and I look forward to more adventures following. Follow Foil Perth if you haven't already, because he's got some great content and some great stories, and he's a bit of a character. So thanks for joining us, Nath, and
great stuff, mate.
We'll have to get you on again
hopefully
sometime soon.
Yeah, and hopefully you can get over here this season. I don't know, see how things go, but it'd be good to get you over.
I'll cross my fingers because I'm really looking forward to getting over, catching up with you and Marcus and Mick and Shannon and all the crew. Yeah,
it'd be great fun. All right, mate. All right. I have to touch base again soon. It's been too long.
It has been too long. All right.
Good talking to you, mate.